You spend decades building your career, your practice, your firm, your reputation, and now you've got something to protect. But in California, one lawsuit, one divorce, one wrong move by a tenant or a business partner, and everything you have built from your home to your saving accounts and your future income could be all on the line. I'm attorney Talai, an asset protection attorney here in California, and I help professionals like you guard their wealth before things go sideways. In this video, I will walk you through exactly how doctors and lawyers lose assets in this state and how to shield your real estate, your retirement, and reputation from malpractice claims, business partners, and even family courts. Because if you wait until the lawsuit hits, your options shrink fast. And in California, there is no such a thing as a free pass once you're exposed. Let's start with something every professional knows but doesn't like to admit. If you're a doctor or a lawyer in California, unfortunately, you're a target. And that's because you are perceived as having deep pockets, high income, and assets worth pursuing. But asset protection isn't just about malpractice. The real threat goes much further. Divorce, partner dispute, car accident, tenant lawsuits, and everyday liability. Think of asset protection as professional insurance for your entire life and not just your practice. Every California doctor and lawyer is expected to carry malpractice insurance, but the truth is those policies have strict limits. Let's say you're a surgeon with $1 million insurance policy. Sounds like plenty. It is not. Until a jury awards a $5 million verdict. That extra $4 million, that's coming from you. And in California, malpractice judgment are personal. Once insurance runs out, plaintiffs go after your house, your saving, and even your future earnings. All right, I'll give you a couple of real-world examples. A Bay Area OBGYN lost a malpractice case recently. Her policy limit was $1 million, but the judgment was for $3.2 million. Plaintiffs immediately filed liens on her home, and unfortunately, she had no asset protection planning in place, and she was forced to settle beyond her insurance and lost a large portion of her saving. The same thing happens to lawyers. You handle a real estate deal, a client claims negligence, and suddenly you're personally liable for millions. The lesson here is that insurance cannot be your only asset protection plan. It is just the first layer in the asset protection planning. The courts can and will come for everything else you own if a judgment exceeds your coverage. Now let's talk about something most professionals don't expect: divorce as an asset protection issue. In California, we're a community property state. That means everything earned or acquired during marriage, income property, even appreciation on premarital business is generally split 50-50. Here is where many professionals are blindsided. Even if your medical practice or law firm started before marriage, any increase in its value during marriage may be treated as community property. California courts can even divide business interests, order buyouts, or force sale of real estate to equalize property division. And it's not just divorce. Domestic partnership breaks up, palimony claims, or restraining orders in family dispute can all affect asset divisions and credit exposure. So if you're married or in domestic partnership, you need to plan before the problem arises. Tools like transmutation agreement or separate property trust can define ownership early and reduce later exposure. Doctors and lawyers don't just face outside lawsuits. They face risk inside their own business. Most claims, unfortunately, comes from employees, partners, or contractors. California's employment laws are some of the toughest in the country. Claims for wrongful termination, discrimination, or wage violation can hit even careful employers. I once worked with a law firm that got hit with a wage and hour lawsuit from a former paralegal. The partners assumed that their corporate structure would protect them, but because the partners did personally manage this particular person and they managed the office policy, the plaintiff argued the partners were individually liable as well. Protection from partners and employees require both legal structure and discipline. LLCs, professional corporations, and proper management protocols are key, but so is following the corporate formalities that courts respect. As you probably know, you're not just a professional, you are a person, and life itself creates liability. Car accidents, slip and fall injuries, tenants claiming unsafe property conditions, these everyday events can be just as devastating as a malpractice claim. If you injure someone in an auto accident and your insurance does not cover the full damages, your personal assets are fair game. If you own rental properties in your personal name, a tenant's lawsuit can reach beyond that property to your savings, investment account, and your practice as well. Here's an example. A Sacramento lawyer, who obviously did not listen to this video, owned a duplex as a side investment, a good investment, but unfortunately, one of the tenants slipped and suffered a long-term injury. The tenant ended up winning a judgment against the lawyer, against the owner, and because this particular owner owned the property under his personal name, the plaintiffs were able to place a lien on his personal residence as well. So remember, everyday risks also require the same discipline as professional ones. Your personal assets, your business assets, and your investments all need separate legal homes. All right, so I told you about all these crazy things that could happen. Let's talk about practical asset protection tools that actually work in California. California isn't as asset protection friendly as states like Nevada and Wyoming, but there are still powerful tools available if you use them correctly. Insurance, your first line of defense. I want you to maximize malpractice liability, your umbrella coverage. Insurance pays for your defense and covers claims up to your limit, your insurance limit. And the other asset protection planning that I'm going to tell you just in a few seconds, they can be used to ensure that the rest of your wealth stays safe. LLCs. Never hold rental properties in your personal name. Each property should have its own LLC to isolate liability. If you're part of a professional practice, maintain separations between your personal finances and your entities. Homestead exemption. For most professionals, your home is your biggest personal asset. And in California, the equity in your home, or at least part of it, is protected by the homestead exemption we have. This exemption shields a portion of your home's equity from most creditors, even if a judgment is entered against you. In other words, if someone wins a lawsuit, they cannot simply force the sale of your primary residence to collect up to the protected amount. This exemption amount varies by county and adjusts each year to reflect local home values. But for many Californians, especially in high-cost areas like Los Angeles, it can protect hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity. To benefit from this homestead exemption, make sure your property is properly designated as your primary residence and that your exemption is recorded correctly when appropriate. This is not an asset protection in the same sense as an LLC or an irrevocable trust, but it is a vital safety net for your home, giving you time and leverage if a judgment ever hits. All right, let's talk about retirement account. In California, most employer-sponsored retirement plans, like your 401k, like the profit-sharing plans, are fully protected from creditors under a federal ERISA law. But IRAs, individual retirement accounts, including your traditional IRA or your Roth IRAs, get only limited protection under California law. The law says they're exempt only to the extent necessary for your and your family's future support, and in practice, that means a judge decides how much is necessary. All right, so let's talk about transmutation agreement for married couple. Under California family laws, spouses can agree in writing to separate property ownership. This can shield one spouse's assets from the other's professional liability as long as it is done in advance and with full disclosure. Holding LLCs and irrevocable trust. If you own multiple entities or properties, you have to consider using a holding company, a Wyoming holding company, or properly structure an irrevocable trust. These add jurisdictional and ownership barriers that make collection far more difficult for creditors. Let's talk about why waiting is the biggest mistake you can make. Here's the pattern I see constantly. Professionals call me after they have been served with a lawsuit. Unfortunately, by that point, most of the best strategies are off the table. California courts treat last-minute transfer as fraudulent conveyance under the Uniform Voidable Transactions Act. Moving assets after claim arises can backfire, causing reversal, penalties, and even attorney fees. So the best time to act is before anything happens. That's when your actions look like responsible estate planning, not hiding. All right, so this is your action plan. Review your current risks: malpractice, business, family, personal. Review your insurance coverage and limits, separate personal and professional assets. Revisit ownership of your real estate, business interests, saving accounts, investment accounts. If you're married, define property ownership clearly now, not later. And most importantly, get California-specific legal advice. No two plans look the same, but every good one starts before there is a problem. All right, so we have covered how malpractice judgments, divorce, partner disputes, and everyday accidents can put your assets at risk, and how California professionals like yourself can protect themselves with smart asset protection planning. But there's another piece you cannot overlook, and that is, how do you keep your personal finances safe from your business and your business safe from your personal life? That is what I cover in my next video: business credit and asset protection, separating personal and business finances in California. You will learn how California courts look at business formalities, how to avoid commingling traps, and the simple system that can make or break your LLC's protection. I look forward to seeing you over there.